Let's start this off. So when we talk, at all times tonight when we're talking about Hollywood, we're talking about the one in Los Angeles, two L's, not the one just down the road. So this is one of the most Hollywood stories I think that's ever happened to Bangor. Yeah. So let's start with this email that arrived in your inbox a while ago.
This one, I don't really get that many emails like this. So completely out of nowhere, you don't know me, but you're going to love me. And I thought, well, this sounds quite interesting. We'll see where this goes.
It's not a very local thing to do, is it? To send someone an email that says, you don't know me, but you're going to love me.
And again, as the emails progressed with this person whose name's Hillary, the amount of exclamation points and marks and, everything was in capitals and everything is amazing with 3 Zs or sometimes 20 Zs. Yeah, it's just a really, really over the top, but amazingly positive person to work with. So and you can see her here. This is Hillary Carlup. She's an author, she's a filmmaker, she's a designer, she's an animator, and she's a juggler, which is the most interesting one, I suppose. She very much grew up on the fringes of stardom in Hollywood and Los Angeles. She would have been grown up being friends with the likes of Carole King, Carly Simon.
These are kind of big names, Hollywood, sort of 70s and 80s, into the 90s. So
this is really, Hillary sort of grew up around, as I say, the fringes of stardom. But again, she has had a few things, where she has appeared in movies like Xanadu and Bachelor Party, where her band Angel on the reruns, as you can see on the left here, they were sort of a kind of a cult LA punk band in the early 80s, and the band appeared as the house band in Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. She has a very sort of diverse career where she's been doing a lot of films recently as well, and she's won some awards. But she got in touch with me with that email and just said, well, okay, you're going to love me. And I was like, okay, well, why? She says, well, I want you to do a logo. And I says, okay. Well, she says, look, I'm a designer myself, but I know my limits. And I need someone who can, illustrate as well as design logos. And I had a look on Pinterest, and I was looking around, and I saw some logos, and I saw a few illustrations on your Pinterest board. And one just struck me, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is the guy I want.
So on the basis of this, here's a couple of bits of your work, which is the sort of thing that had been spotted on Pinterest. But it was this logo here, this World of Kitsch. This was the one that Hillary spotted.
Hillary saw this logo on Pinterest, the World of Kitsch. Oh, this is it. And she said she felt, this is my guy. You've got to go with this fella, which is a really nice thing to hear. So that was a local logo that I'd done for somebody, and it's managed to get me some work from Hollywood.
What was the reason she wanted a logo designing?
Hillary's best friend was a girl called Ali Willis. She's the most interesting woman you've never heard of. And Ali had died. She did a lot with her life, and we'd like to with some of her friends and her partner, we'd love to do something that celebrates her legacy. She said, we're going to set up something called the Willis Wonderland Foundation. Willis Wonderland was her house, as you can see here. We're going to celebrate her life, and we're going to have the Willis Wonderland Foundation, and that is going to be a songwriters foundation, and we're going to use her house, keep it as it is, and use the recording studio and all the bits and pieces around there, and make it something.
When you say songwriting foundation, there's pictures of Ali is here on the big screen. You can see her with Billie Eilish in the bottom corner.
She wrote songs for Debbie Harry, Cyndi Lauper, Joni Mitchell.
Theme tune from Friends, Earth, Wind and Fire.
The theme tune from The Karate Kid, that was her. Yep. The song for the Pet Shop Boys, What Have I Done to Deserve This, with Dusty Springfield. An awful lot. I mean, it's quite the CV. Really is very much the CV.
So she's kind of like you say, the most famous woman you've never heard of in Hollywood. This took you into doing this logo for the Willis Wonderland.
The logo is very sort of glitzy, very kitsch, and the actual building part of the logo is actually based on the backyard view of Ali's house, where she threw some of her most legendary Hollywood parties, which went down in history. So we designed the logo together and had a hell of a lot of fun doing that. And then we decided, okay, well, we're going to have a great big launch night for it at Ali's house. We'll launch the foundation. Of course, Ali wrote the song September for Earth, Wind and Fire. So, of course, the launch night had to be the 21st night of September.
Are you going to sing that for us?
I am not going
No,
to
that's
sing.
okay.
So we did big posters that went all around Hollywood Boulevard. The host committee was RuPaul, Lily Tomlin,
So the
Paul
posters-
Rubens, Jennifer Lewis. But you know, every time you're speaking to Hillary, it's like there's another celebrity name drop coming.
You've all talked to people who fluffed a project and said, oh, you know, it's going to be this, it's going to be amazing, so-and-so's involved.
Never
But
is.
in this one, with Hillary, it genuinely was.
It absolutely
Everyone
was.
involved.
And again, it was one of those things where I was like really sort of putting this all together in my back garden in Bangor. I say, this is nuts. This is absolutely crazy.
You've done the logo for the foundation, then the idea comes, we're going to do a pop-up book.
Yeah, yeah.
And doing a pop-up book's not just the same as doing a book, is it?
It sure
It's
isn't.
multiplied
Yeah.
many times in difficulty. There's a lot of technical challenges in there. But what were you were asked to recreate the house basically as a pop-up.
Yeah, I mean, I've designed a lot of books over the years. I mean, I've designed a book of Chaucerian English for Oxford University. That was a really tough. That took me a year and a half to finish. This took me a year to finish.
Yeah.
This is pretty much the toughest brief I've ever been given. So I'm really working from photographs, and it's like, you know, we're working in 3, maybe 4 dimensions here with some of the spreads. And it was very, very, very tough to try and sort of visualize each room as you were drawing it. Ali bought Willis Wonderland in 1980, and she famously bought it with her first royalty check from writing the song Boogie Wonderland, and that was enough to buy a house in Hollywood like that. It was actually originally built and designed by a guy called Bill Kesling in 1936, I think, early 30s anyway. All of his buildings in Los Angeles anyway are kept very sleek, like you can see in the photograph here. They're very clean, very white, very Art Deco. Ali bought one and painted it bubblegum pink instantly, so it's like, you know,
Neighbours loved her straight away.
neighbours loved her straight away.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Perfect. So as you go through the book, there's sort of a different spread for all the
That's
different
right,
rooms
yeah.
of the house. So we're going to take you through a couple of the spreads. You come up to the front of the house.
Her front garden is basically sand, bowling balls and cacti, and it's like, just he's like, oh no, this is fantastic. So when you come up, and they're still there, the cacti are there, the bowling balls are there, it's still bubblegum pink, and of course this beautiful 1955 Studebaker Commander sitting in the driveway, as you can see there, and I love drawing that, I love drawing cars.
You're trying to immediately impress anyone who picks the book up with this opening spread. What were you sort of thinking of? What have I got to hit here? Because you've got to take some liberties as a designer as well, haven't you?
It's very tricky to keep this very true to life, you know. But here you can see, so we've got the front of the house, we've got the cacti, we've got the bowling balls, we've got the sand in the flower beds, we've got a nice little lawnmower there, and I draw the lawnmower, and I love to draw the car. So here we have that Studebaker Commander, Ali's in the front seat, and she's ready to roll.
And every single detail and element of this, all the tiny little details. The bowling balls were they designed, did she put them in just to annoy the neighbours? Or
I
what?
think there's a bit of that. I
Yeah.
think it was just really, you know, I think she saw her house and the whole idea of Willis Wonderland as, you know, an ongoing art project.
Which must have gone down well with some of the locals, I
Well, I
imagine.
actually spoke recently with somebody on Instagram who lived around the corner from her, and he was like, you know, I drove past that house every day to school, and I mean, as kids, we absolutely adored it, because every other house was clean
and white,
beautiful, and this was something completely different, obviously.
So moving on to the recording studio,
Sure.
so, you know, for someone who made next to no money from the Friends theme tune.
But she was paid, I think, $2,000 for that initially. That was
You'd
her,
think it'd
that was
be
her fee.
hundreds of thousands
You know.
based on, but $2,000.
I think once they realised quite how successful it was becoming, I think a deal was cut. Royalties eventually came her way.
So you can see in the background there's all the golden discs
of
and
gold
everything
discs.
like that, and then so you've had to bring all that to life. And I think this is one of my favourite
I
spreads.
reckon, yeah. You can see here how the gold discs and silver discs, everything comes out there. So you see Deborah Harry, Aretha Franklin, Tony Basil.
The level of detail in this particular spread with Ali
yeah.
playing the drums, the discs in the background. Anyway, moving on to the backyard.
Absolutely.
This is where the parties happen.
So the parties, I mean, you've got Linda Ronstadt there, you've got Joni Mitchell coming round. The stories about the parties were legendary. Let's remember, this was built in the 1930s, rumoured to be the MGM Studios party house in the 1930s.
If those walls could talk. This is 70s, 80s
very much.
LA.
Yeah.
Why was that backyard such a special, safe place?
Because this was in North Hollywood and very much away from the real glitz and glamour, so paparazzi wouldn't be around there so much. Ali, of course, she very much struggled with her sexuality and eventually came out as being gay, but again, you're talking early 80s, a lot of her friends who were gay probably didn't want to maybe broadcast that fact in the early 80s in Hollywood.
Newspapers outing people and all that sort of stuff.
It was only, again, a very different time, you know. Yeah. So it was seen as a very much a private place where everyone could go and be themselves and not be hounded by paparazzi, you know.
So I want to geek out for a little bit. We talked about sort of Hollywood stories, almost the opposite of the Hollywood stories. I want to talk to you about paper, because when you look at the pop-up book and you start seeing the way the spreads are put together, all the little action and animation that happens with them, as you can see on the screen there, that doesn't just happen by accident. And you mentioned that a paper engineer, which was a job I didn't know existed.
Neither did I.
Hillary's in LA, in one Hollywood. You're next to the other Hollywood. The paper engineer is in.
So Mike Malkovas, aka the Fold Man. This is how he goes on Instagram. So he decided, I'm going to cut a niche here. I'm going to get into pop-up technology, and I'm going to become a paper engineer. Really find his niche. And again, he's seen as one of the world's best.
You mentioned making the paper work. I've never even tried to get my head around how you would make a pop-up book, but it turns out, as you've discovered, it's not a straightforward process, is it? So now the 3 or 4 of you involved have a lot of experience with this. So you've created one book for Ali for this film, but now you're planning to do more?
Well, you know, I know Hillary would have said the absolute most rewarding project she's ever worked on, and I would absolutely second that. I've never had an experience that comes close to it. You know, we worked so well together that, you know, we thought we definitely want to do this again. So Hillary has since set up a company called House of Pop-Ups, of course, and we are actively searching for our next project, which is amazing.
So if anybody wants a pop-up bookmaking, I know the guy.
You know, we've got the book here, which is fantastic, but the most exciting thing about the book is there's a film as well, which is really bizarre. I didn't even know there was a film being made about Ali Willis while I was working on the book. We got about halfway through it, and then they were like, "Oh, we'll show you, about the movie." Obviously, I was like, "No one told me about that." And it's like, "Well, we're making the film as well."
You did the poster for the film before it went, which is the blue one you can see here before it went to Sundance. So Sundance is the kind of indie film festival.
Yeah, Hillary and I designed the original poster when this was an indie movie. And we sort of thought, I'll probably do a couple of runs of the film festivals in America, but it probably won't do much more than that. And so we designed this poster, which was great fun. And then, after it had gone through the film festivals, one of Ali's other very famous friends decided to buy the film. So this chap top right is called Mark Cuban. He's an American billionaire entrepreneur.
And Mark runs Magnolia Pictures. Probably half of all the films in the late 80s and 90s had a Magnolia stamp on them at some point somewhere.
So Mark decided, look, Ali was a great friend of mine. Let's just sort of make something out of this. And, my film company will just buy the film and we'll have an LA premiere, obviously. And then we'll have a New York premiere, obviously, and then we'll run it through all the major theatres in the US for a week or two. And it's like, oh, okay then. So it kind of became kind of a big deal overnight.
And there was whispers that of maybe going for a little gold statue.
This is the hardest part because, it was like, look, this is very much under consideration for an Oscar nomination. Which was really, really exciting. So I was in London just before Christmas there, to see the London screening, and so I met Prudence and a few other people from the West Wonderland Foundation. They were over, of course, and they were actively, pursuing that Oscar nomination, and it was such a disappointment when it didn't get it. But anyway,
they blamed the pop-up book for not getting it.
This was the problem. It was my illustrations definitely put them off.